Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
What's going on? It's late already.
It's late. Yeah, it's late. It's late. I really was expecting a bad joke coming out of you there.
I got nothing.
You
My
remember
bad
the
joke.
end of our Sleeping in Light, or not the Sleeping Light. It was the season 5 wrap.
Yeah, that was.
Hey, Jeff.
That was one of my favorite moments in the whole thing. I love that.
It might be my single favorite moment from the whole show. And by the way, you guys' comments on that thing was awesome.
Right, that was so good. Yeah, I have no. My only joke is already written in here to close the show out, and it's not great. So they rarely are.
I may adjust that on the fly. So just be.
You might, although you'll see where it's from. Like it. Okay. There's a reason it's there.
Fair enough. Jeff, why don't we go ahead and jump into this? Hey guys, welcome to the show. My name is Brent. That's Jeff.
Hi.
I can never get the angle right.
I know. It's always. I'm getting better at it though. Yeah. I'm figuring it out.
Where I'm pointing right now is like from where I'm sitting is like 1 o'clock.
Really?
To make it look like it's going that direction.
Wow.
Like if I'm pointing 3 o'clock, it's this way to me right now.
That's wild.
Yeah. Camera angles are weird, man. They're so weird. So weird. Anyway, welcome to the show, guys. What you guys are about to watch is Jeff and I record an audio podcast because we're podcasters. That's kind of the thing we do. But we thought we'd throw this out on YouTube because it's funnier this way.
And why not? You know,
I mean, right?
Here it is.
Yeah. And honestly, this is the better show. We've said it for so many years now. This is the show. This is what it really is. The audio thing just sort of.
It's cool. It's there.
Yeah, it's a function. Great. By the way, if you're one of our audio listeners, normally, hi, you're awesome. You're amazing. We love you. We do this for you.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Anyway. Also, come here to the YouTube and see the whole thing.
There you go. What you guys are going to get though out of this is you're going to get the run-ons. And I'm going to tell you what, this one could be chock full of lots of little, let's just call them side quests of the conversation.
That's fair. That's
it really fair. Could be. Really could be. You're going to get the flubs. You're going to get the mistakes. You're going to see all the behind the scenes. This is, if you ever want to know what it's like to podcast, this is it right here. This is how the game is played.
Okay.
It is. This is how Link puts the Triforce together.
Ooh.
It is. This is how Mario rescues the princess. Absolutely.
Except she's in another castle. So.
Oh my gosh. Jeff, hit the magic button. Let's get going on this episode of Crusade number 3.
So what is to be gained by fighting?
Maybe nothing. Maybe a lot. I'd like to be the one to make that decision.
I want you to know that this thing just made a very large dent in my ship.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast, Babylon 5.
For the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin.
And I'm Brent Allen. You know, Jeff and I used to be 2 veteran Star Trek nerds who decided to watch Babylon 5 for the first time. And you know what happened? We loved it so much that we decided to continue that journey with Crusade for the very first time.
And just like always, we're going to be searching for those deep hidden messages in this series. But don't worry, those are not Star Trek messages because this is not a Star Trek podcast. And to reinforce that, we're going to keep our long-running game, the Rule of 3, in play. This game limits us to no more than 3 references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
And Jeff, if we happen to make one of those references,
in that rare occasion that it happens, you'll hear this sound. Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This one's off Apple Podcasts. Doondaroddle says, excellent podcast. Jeff and Brent bring unique opinions and viewpoints to their first-time experience. They made me appreciate episodes I didn't always before. Always excited to hear them on Monday morning.
Doondaroddle. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate that. Also, please email us to babylon5first@gmail.com or go to our website, which is
babylon5first.com.
and click the send a message or send email or whatever button. I need to know the story behind your name.
Huh?
I'm genuinely curious what Dundradal. Yeah. I need the story behind this name, whatever it means.
Also in that email, will you include the fact that you're referencing the episode TKO? Because I'm sure you are. Why? Because it made them appreciate episodes they didn't appreciate before.
Oh.
That's literally what we bring to the table is TKO is a great episode.
Yeah. Yeah. TKO was a good episode, man. I don't care what they say. Was it the best? Maybe not, but
It's good. It was a good one.
Those are fighting words for Jeff, folks. If you're new around here, Jeff really loved everybody's least favorite episode of TKO.
I will meet you in the Muay.
Well, Jeff, you know what? Along with our game, The Rule of Three, there's another game that we like to play at the end of the show where we try to guess what next week's episode is going to be about based on title alone. We don't look at thumbnails. We don't read show descriptions. We just hear the title and we go, I don't know, take a shot in the dark. Well, this is the part where we get to laugh at ourselves by revisiting that prediction from last week and see how close we got. So, Jeff, today's episode is titled Appearances and Other Deceits. What did you think this one was going to be about?
Well, I got the first part of my prediction came out right, and that was going through a part of space. From there, I veer far to the starboard side. I said, then you're going to need to disguise the ship and themselves to get through that area of space safely. Not even close. Brent, what did you think?
Well, I said not a Technomage episode, which would have gotten me 100 points. However, I kept talking. I said they're going to meet a race that isn't what they really seem to be, and the crew's going to have to discover what their big secret is. Not what happened on this one at all.
Not so much.
Well, Jeff, there's a strong chance, strong possibility with this one. Now, we said this for all the Babylon 5 episodes, but I know for Crusade, there's actually a strong possibility that there are people who are listening to the show right now who never have seen this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's been years since they've seen this episode and they're like, I'm not going through that mess again. Jeff, why don't you tell the folks out there listening what this show was actually about, not just what we predicted?
It's all about appearances, The people back home have to not only know someone is looking for the cure, but they have to look good doing it too. And apparently EarthGov agrees. They've sent 2 people out to dress up the Excalibur and, I don't know, maybe even design some new uniforms. One of those guys is direct off of his stint with the Ministry of Peace and Nightwatch. It's Naroon! I mean, Mr. Wells. This guy has mastered the art of surviving political change. Now, this doesn't slow down normal business on the Excalibur at all. They come upon a derelict ship with a big old hole blown out of it. Yeah, like out of it. There are dead bodies just floating around, and there's one in a cryo chamber. They bring that into Med Lab, and spoiler alert, Dr. Chambers does not long dark that cryo-frozen dude, so she's already leaps and bounds above early Dr. Franklin. They're trying to help the frozen guy out, but he dies right after he touches a med tech. And this eerie sci-fi light moves up from him onto her. Really, we've all been watching sci-fi stuff long enough. We know what this means, right? Well, she walks around touching other people and sci-fi lighting them too, and they sci-fi light someone who then sci-fi lights somebody else, and before you know it, they're all earning a percentage of their downline sales. And all the while, that annoying guy from Warzone, Max Eilerson, is trying to decode the graffiti that was on that derelict ship. It's all kind of fun and games until Mr. Wells gets sci-fi lit. And then it gets real. Possessed with the alien thing, he explains that they're a race that reproduces and colonizes by taking over the bodies of others. And that's what they're going to do here. Unless, that is, Gideon agrees to just drop him off on an inhabited planet. But Gideon's kind of a badass, and he shuts him down. Tensions get high, and the threat of the aliens taking control of the ship gets more and more likely. But the crew doesn't know what to do. Matheson is reviewing the footage from his inspection with the fashion guy sitting right there next to him for some reason. Matheson asks him if he's seen him before, like, I don't know, in Prague or something. And he responds, "It must have been Milan, darling. Supermodels. Nothing super about them. Pff, spoiled little stick figures with poofy lips who think only about themselves. Pff, I used to design for gods." And then, along with Eilerson's translations, they realized the sci-fi aliens were trying to save themselves by all moving into one person. And with that, they come up with a plan. Gideon gets all spacesuited up and heads onto the alien-controlled deck of the ship. With the suit on, they can't alien light him. So he vents the deck, sucks all the air out, and as expected, they move all the aliens into one person. Shockingly, it's Wells. He runs for an airlock, and he sees a person in an EV suit laying around, so he transfers all the aliens into him, but it's a dude named Greenberg that got shot in an attack, and now it's just his body that's alive. Gideon vents that body out, and then that body gets blown away. Problem solved. So after getting new uniforms from our fashionista, Gideon does his duty and writes letters to the families of Greenberg and Arkham, another guy that lost his life in this conflict. Brent, what did you think of Appearances and Other Deceits?
You know, Jeff, there is no way this is going to come down as like the best episode of the series.
No.
Or even in the top part of the series. It's just not going to. It was campy. It was cheesy. The part I think that got me the absolute most is when Janie, she had the little thing, and Eilerson was like running away from her, and her mouth does this like 90s horror thing where like it stretches abnormally large and she emits this guttural scream or whatever. I was like, oh no. This episode leaned into every single bit of it, and you know what? I loved it. Oh, I had so much fun with this episode. I'm here for every bit of it. I laughed my butt off all the way through this episode. It was so much fun. You know what I really like the most, Jeff? I like, you said it in your recap, we have seen this episode 1,000 times before, except the answer at the end, the reveal of what's really going on, was completely new. The way they figured it out, completely creative. And once again, I just have to praise the writing of JMS, who can take a setup that we've seen so many times before and bring something new and end it in a completely unique way. I was ecstatic about that. I loved seeing Wells again. Mm-hmm. He first came on the screen and I was like, that's Naroon. You know, it'd be amazing. I said this like literally in the opening credits. I was like, you know, it'd be amazing as if he was the same character that he played the last time he was a face. John Vickery is his name, right? I
think so.
The last time he was here, I don't even remember his name. And we get all the way to the end of the episode, and finally they yell out his name, Mr. Wells. And I was like, that's it. That's the name. Like, oh, I loved it. I loved it. We'll talk more about him. I loved the decorator guy. I never got his name. I loved his whole shtick. Yeah. Now, it was very 90s, and by today's terms would probably be a very offensive role to play, so maybe I shouldn't like it, but I'm not going to put words in the mouths of the people who it may or may not offend. I did like him, and I even liked that he, and I'm going to talk more about this later too, he was the one who actually cracked the answer.
Yeah.
You know, it was him who did it. Wells and the decorator guy were not just a wasted Rebo and Zudi guest star. They were integral to the plot, and I loved it. I thought Gideon's solution to the problem was a classic JMS resolution. This is the stuff we would have seen Sinclair do. This is the stuff we saw Sheridan do so many times, and Gideon's right there in that vein. So overall, can I call this a good episode? Meh. But you know what? I liked it a lot. How about you, Jeff?
I was bored in this one.
Oh, no.
But I think I was just bored because it was so paint by numbers, up to a point. So much of the episode, it's just like, okay, this is happening. Okay. But then it started to take a turn. And I didn't realize, like, there was this little storyline that was happening on the side. And I didn't like it very much because it was tied to Max Eilerson. And I just do not like that guy at all. But the whole thing with him and Stuart Greenberg, and why would he sacrifice himself for me? And in the moment, I'm just like, okay, well, here they get their little message in. We'll talk about that later a little bit. But no, it wasn't about getting the message in. It was to set up like the biggest. This was, in a way, this was Believers, but slapped on to just like your generic sci-fi thing where you're like, okay, well, they're going to do a thing. And then he gets up to the EV suit guy. And for a second, I'm like, why is there this random EV suit guy there? And then I realize, oh my God, they've been setting this up the whole time. That we have a guy who doesn't have like his mental faculties anymore. It's just his body pumping blood at this point. And they're going to freaking sacrifice him. And they don't just sacrifice him. They vent him and blow him to kingdom come. I was like, only JMS. The only thing that would make this more JMS is if that guy was 12 years old.
You ain't right, JMS. You ain't right. You earned that one. You need to wear that one.
We'll be reading his autobiography here at some point. I'm sure there's a reason for that theme in there, but yeah, so like as that whole thing, really the plan, to be really fair, I think it was what you said too. The moment Matheson and the fashion guy were there and they used him in a different way, I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of interested. What's this? At this point, it was Wells pulling me through. I was interested in him. He's engaging. I wanted to know stuff. And so, okay. But that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of paying attention. And then when Gideon shows up on that deck in the EV suit, and I'm like, oh, this is going to get nuts. And it got so just... But the icing on the cake and what brought it home to me was that scene of him writing the letters home for Greenberg and Arkham. I was just like, oh my... We see that occasionally in TV, but not often enough. Yeah. And Gary Cole in that scene was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I was bored. 100% agree this isn't going to be in the top, probably in the, cutting the top fold in this series, but totally not going to skip this episode. Like totally worth watching again.
I don't know why I had so much fun with this one, because I think had this been any other series, I probably would have been like you. I'd have been really bored. Maybe my expectations for this series are so low.
No, that's fair.
I kind of I'm just going where it takes me and just having fun with it, because I know we got 13 episodes. That's it. Yeah. And it's out. Like, it can be goofy. It can be all of those things. And I'm going to go along for the ride. Jeff, where do you want to start talking about this episode? Because there's like 15 different places we could go. And
there's a
where
lot.
do you want to go?
I want to hit just a couple of things about the episode itself.
Yeah.
Did you notice who directed this one?
Fear.
He totally directed it.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. And then they added a thing. Well, I don't know if I want to say added, just acknowledging that, just acknowledging show order and things like that, episode order being what they are. I'm not like, oh, they introduced a new thing, but we saw this thing for the first time. But those bullet trains,
yeah,
that made so much sense to me.
Yeah,
like
I'm looking through my note here and I don't see it immediately in my note, but I remember saying in my Brent Watches video, I was like, that's how you get around this ship.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you get around. Was it a 5 mile long ship or something like that?
It's huge.
That's how you get around this ship.
They use the same thing. They use the same thing on the Nexus in Mass Effect Andromeda. So I was pretty excited to see that. And yet another callback for me. Let's just ask the big question, like the biggest thing out of this. What do you think of the new uniform?
My first thought when I saw it, especially because it comes complete with red trimming and a tunic, is I really thought it was a stab at Star Trek.
Oh, 100%.
You know, the fact that he said, what'd he say?
I look like a bellhop.
There it is right there. I look like a bellhop. So I got to watch this episode twice. I don't usually watch episodes twice, but I got to watch this twice. At first I was like, okay, ha ha ha. Later, when I saw him in the uniform, here's the thing. The decorator dude and Mr. Wells, where they're talking about like, no, we need people to look at this and be like, yes, like we're going to be okay. Because, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure here shortly, but their whole point for being there, which seems so superficial and so whatever, actually is a really good point. You know, and I was sitting there going, okay, so there's the black uniform and then there's the bellhop uniform. If I'm a dude sitting back on Earth, freaked out of my gourd about this disease, everything is melting down around me, and I look up on TV and I see some footage of these people who are supposed to be our hope, and like these are the people that are going out and getting it and doing it. Do I want to see somebody in whatever this black uniform thing is that kind of just looks comfortable and whatever? Is that going to inspire me and fill me with hope and let me get through the next 5 years? Or is it the guy wearing the Star Trek uniform? Dude, that's a badass going through space. That looks good on TV, and that's going to call me. And you know what? I kind of said the bellhop uniform would be the one that I would, that I think would have the most impact on me.
I couldn't possibly disagree more.
I thought you would.
On every point. Like I think the uniform just looks horrible, especially when he has like the undershirt on and it looks like he has like a lobster, bib on. It's horrible. And if I'm home freaking out about this and they show me this crew of people in this lightly lit ship with these really nice uniforms, smiling and doing their jobs and looking like they're heroes, I'm going to be like, I literally had to like murder my neighbor's pets so I could eat. Like, it's nuts down here. And you're out there being like, whoa, it's so great as we're looking. No, I want to see you out there working hard. I want to see grit. I want to see sweat. I want to hear these reports of we did this, and this. Like, I want you to look military. I want you to look like you're out there doing stuff, not like you're out on a luxury liner having a good time.
But what looks more military? The uniforms that we got, I'm going to call them the Star Trek uniforms.
That's fair.
Because that's what they looked like. All right. They honestly, actually, you know what they look more than Star Trek? They look more like the Galaxy Quest uniforms.
Yes. That's a great call. Great call.
But there's that, or there's whatever this black uniform. Now I just want to state, if I was there, I'd want to wear the black uniform. Because I thought it looked great. I thought I had no problems with that uniform. I don't know why they felt the need to change it. Maybe studio interference or something like that wanted it to be more
bright or something.
That's going to be my guess as to why. But I don't know. I think I would just be better if it was this other uniform, because here's the other thing. We're not going to get the mission reports. We're not going to hear about all the stuff that they did. It'll be not on public TV.
ISN has got to be pumping that stuff out. I mean, that's what's going to make the difference.
It's all going to be very superficial and on the surface as far as what they got going on. So
but they're going to show these little clips. I want to see them. And I think for the uniform looking military, those black uniforms, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but those are almost the same as what we wore on the submarine. Like,
are they?
Oh yeah. Like, we call them poop suits because of the way you had to zip them and get in and out of them. These were had a lot more utility to them, but totally have the look, almost like Star Trek Enterprise. The uniforms they had in Enterprise were submarine uniforms, essentially. It's just with more dress up on them.
Yeah.
So I got that same vibe here. I liked it, but we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to messages because I have other thoughts on it. But I thought it was interesting too. They bring him in to like, let's brighten the space. Let's do all this stuff and maybe look at your uniforms. I don't think they made any changes to the space that I noticed.
Well, not that we saw. And I don't know that they'll actually do it, but he did talk about, we got to change some colors. We got to do some different stuff in here. Let's go there, Jeff. So they come in and he says they've been there for a few weeks or whatever. They're kind of at the end of it. And they need to make these changes to the color scheme. They're making changes to the uniform. Obviously they're very, very annoying to the crew.
Mm-hmm.
However, Mr. Wells talks about how that he says they have to have the right political sway and social sway. When you first heard that, what was going through your head?
Oh, at that point, I knew it was Wells. I knew it was him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. They I don't think they said it at that point, but they said it really shortly afterwards. Because at first they hinted, his exact line was, "I'm someone who knows how to survive."
See, I don't think they said his name till the very end.
Oh, no, they call him Wells throughout the whole episode.
Oh, do they?
Captain, we have they're calling it's Wells. Things like, yeah, they call him throughout.
Okay, whatever.
But that's what I thought of it. Literally, was just like, they are so masterfully tongue-in-cheeking the fact that, like, hey, last time this guy was absolutely horrible. And, had Ivanova and was making all these promises to her. So it's like, yeah, I get it, but I understand. I thought it was brilliant. It was just a great way of making him a sympathetic character.
Mm-hmm. But as far as the whole, like, no, we're here. We're going to make all these changes for political reasons. Not functional, just political. Because, if this whole thing succeeds, what's this going to mean for our current administration? That's going to be quite the feather in the cap.
Right.
Like,
well,
that sounds so gross and disgusting, right? Or at least to me it does.
I think it comes down to this question. What's more important? Actually finding the cure, or the way people perceive you looking for the cure?
So that actually, I think, is a great question that we do need to ask, because he goes on to explain a really good point. The plague is still 4 years away. We got people panicking right now. This is the more immediate need. And we have to get people calm. We have to give people a sense of hope that we're going to get through these next 4 years and beyond. We've got to get this under control, and it has to have the right social impact, which of course is going to come back to the political side. And, since we're footing the bill and paying the money, that should make no difference whatsoever, to be honest with you. But regardless, I at first I was like, oh, this is so gross. This is so gross. And then he started talking, and I was like, actually, I think that's a really good point. And they do. They've got to give people that hope.
So I'm going to go back to late 2001, early 2002.
Okay.
Here in the United States, we were in a panic. We were freaking out, and we had a lot of messaging, right? Go shopping, otherwise the terrorists win. Yep. Go to the show, otherwise the terrorists win. But people were afraid, and they needed something in place that restored that hope. And one of the things they put in place was the TSA. Hey, look, you go to the airport now, look at all this security. It's great. Well, here we are, 22, 23 years later. We spend $11 billion a year on the TSA, and they fail. Well, actually, back in 2015, they failed 95% of their audits. 95% of the time, if they tested it, dangerous stuff got through. They've improved, and now it's only about 80% failure. But what we did is we took this moment, we said, we need something that looks good and makes it look like we're making people safe. And now what we have is a thing that is invasive, ridiculously expensive, and provides zero safety whatsoever. And never did.
Yeah.
Never did. And so I think, to me, it just comes down to that question of, it is that question. Do you want the thing, or do you want the theater of the thing? You get into like IT stuff, changing your password. Come on. That's so like 2015. We're so beyond that now for security, but that's the thing. You got to change your password every 90 days because no, just come on, use something like that. We need to make people feel that, but the reality, and I agree, there is, I'm not saying there's not value in making people feel, that things are being handled or whatever, but the reality is when we put that thing in place that looks and feels good, almost never are we actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is the time to say, hey, you know what? We could have come with you dressed up. We could have done these things, but we know you're hurting and we want resources for you here. And we're going to keep you up to date on all the great things that are happening on the Excalibur. In fact, every week for 1 hour, you can tune in and see exactly what's happening. I don't know.
I get your point. I get your point. I really do. And you're probably making the most sense and a way more valid point. I still think Wills has a good point too, though.
Well, maybe it's yes and. Maybe it's both.
You could be right. You could be right. I like that very non-confrontational answer right there. Hey, can we agree on this? Hail Mary Across the Stars would be a great name for a rock album.
Oh my God, yes.
Maybe not a band name, but like the name of like their third album or whatever.
Their concept record.
Yeah.
Like
Hail
right
Mary
behind me
Across the
here
Stars.
is the 20. I can't even point at the thing because it's all backwards. But I got 2112 right over here. That's a great name, but that could have been Hail Mary Across the Stars just as easily.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about
Are you hearing that?
Yes, I am.
I don't even know what that is.
What are you listening to? What is? Oh,
I have no idea. Stand by.
All right, Jeff, you got it settled. We good?
For now, I don't know what the heck that was.
Oof. We were talking about Hail Mary Across the Stars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it could just as easily been called Hail Mary Across the Stars, and it still would have been an incredible record.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, let's talk about Janie for a minute.
Okay.
So Janie, typical doctor's assistant, Nurse Ogawa. Just that person, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
She goes in and they got dude frozen on a table, and she runs in and grabs the defibrillator as if this alien body has a heart that's controlled by electricity that can be defibrillated, and she's gonna put the paddles in the exact same spot as, like, what? Come on now.
That's even more ridiculous because what we know is like the Centauri have 2 hearts and they're placed kind of, so it's not like it's uncommon to have things different. That's why, do I have the quote here? I gotta see if I have because it was so incredible what Dr. Chambers said to her afterwards. Oh, here it is. I want you to go through full decon, including body cavity. Maybe we'll get lucky and find out where your copy of MedLab regulations went. Like, to me, that's like that. You're standing a captain's mast, if nothing else, for doing something like that.
Okay, for us non-Navy folks, what does that mean? Standing at a captain's mast.
So, captain's mast is like court on the ship. Like you go, you present your case, and the captain renders judgment. It's not to the point of like a court martial,
okay,
where it's a big thing, but it's just handled.
It's just like internal discipline or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they can still take real action, like knock you down in rank, and they can even kick you out. I mean, they can do real stuff, but it's much less than a court martial would be.
So, dude grabs Janie, and you talked about the light, the sci-fi light that we've all seen, which we totally know means his consciousness is being transferred into her.
Yeah.
There's always one left alive. You go to the ghost ship, right? It's the ghost ship. That's what we saw.
Yeah.
And there's always that one, just always. And that one's going to have the thing downloaded. And then she goes and she starts acting weird. And she's individually distributing these personalities around. we assume now, and this is where the watching sci-fi a lot kind of bit us in the butt a little bit, or at least me. My thought was, well, he has the entire civilization in his brain,
Mm-hmm.
and he's distributing the different people, the different personalities as they go around, and they're gonna kind of take over. We learn later that there was actually something different, but
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you were just like me when we were watching this, of just going, dude, I've seen this. I know what this is.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I mean, I said it in my first thought, it's total paint by numbers down to the effects and everything. But it was, like you said, in your first thoughts too, it was very unique. You know, the idea. And I think I've rolled back to, I so love back to passing through Gethsemane, when we learned about the Minbari religion, and like, I love that. We're all manifestations of the universe just trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
And this was almost like that idea put into a species.
Right.
Where they said like there was the one, and then we're all, you know, coming from the one, and we're all, I forget what it was they said, but like we're all a little lesser than that one, but we're all, and it's just like manifestations of the same being. But also I'm very interested about this alien race, not only the one that moved around, but the one that was housing it, like the guy they found. At first I thought it was like the Stribe or the Shadow Surgeons or something like that, but I would love to learn more about these little sci-fi light aliens. Fascinating.
So, well, and that's the thing. And see, that's where this whole thing took a turn for me, was when they go, no, it's actually just one alien who is subdividing, like cellular mitosis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And I put down there at some point, I was like, oh, this is not all these entities in one body. This is one entity getting spread. And oh, by the way, also those aliens that we found them in, also probably not the original inhabitants for the, like, they were actually victims, not the perpetrators or whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the unique side. That's where this took a turn and was like, oh, okay, this is something new. This is something different. And I really appreciate where they're going with this. And now I'm into it and I want to see what happens.
It's cool how they brought that up too, is Eilerson. I hated that he actually like moved stuff along in this episode, because I'm so annoyed every time he's on screen. But I think even Gideon is annoyed by him. Like they're sitting in the mess hall that looks like Sizzler from the late 80s. And he keeps his back to him and like barely even looks at him. While Max is just, oh, blah, 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 blah. Look how smart and important I am. And Gideon's like, yeah, okay. Yep, whatever. But he noticed, he's like, there's this language, and then there's this other language, and they're totally different. There's nothing between them.
Right.
And even when he realized that, and he stands up and, oh my God, look how smart I am. Ugh, he's awful. But I liked the idea of that.
So that scene you're talking about, I have to say, I thought this might have been one of Stephen First's greatest moments as a director.
Okay.
The idea that Gideon and Eilerson are sitting back to back, having a full-on conversation with each other, almost as if they're like two spies meeting in a park, sitting on opposite sides of the bench, not supposed to look like they're having a conversation, but totally having a conversation together. And I just thought it was so interesting. I put something out. I think somebody wrote a comment on like our Patreon page or something, maybe in Discord, of what the script says. Cause I wanted to know if this was something that JMS said, that he directed that in the stage directions, or if this was something that Stephen First or his DP came up with as they were trying to figure out how to shoot this.
Mm-hmm.
And they said basically Gideon comes in and he sits at a different table than Eilerson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like an adjacent table or something like that. So not specifically directly behind him, you know? So I think that went there, but I just like visually, I do not know the last time we've seen that kind of a conversation occurring.
Yeah, that's really true.
You know,
It's super unique.
we've seen like, hey, I'm sitting over here and the person's sitting at that table and we're having a conversation, but you're still facing each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
And they at most just kind of a little bit over the shoulder, a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of going. That's a great point, though, on it being almost like two spies. It almost reminds me of Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat, when they before they sit across the table for the first time, but they're still kind of talking back and forth, and then they end up face to face. But I think that made me think just now of other cool things that Stephen First probably put in as a director, and that's when Janie went after Eilerson. I thought that was awesome because like he had no idea, and it was and this made so realistic. He's just like, I'm done pontificating over here. I'm going to walk away just as she reaches. Right. And then I thought that was great.
And she reaches out and then her hand lands on somebody else. And she Vulcan neck pinches the dude and spreads her, like everybody was grabbing people by the neck, man. Like,
that's the magic spot. But that's the scene that then led to the shootout and where things really started to escalate big time.
And the
God, what that, you know, I almost felt like I was watching Predator.
Yeah.
You know, he takes the mask off and which would have been cool if it turned into something like that. But instead it was just like, hey, by the way, this is a late 90s thing that we're doing. Yikes.
You know what I loved seeing? We got a little shot, the little floaty camera thing, the little drone camera. Remember when it was hitting Lanier in the head? I love
that it gets right up in Wells just gets right up in it and stuff. It's like this is just a normal thing.
Right.
I think we just got a lot of really cool day in the life ship stuff that was just happening.
Sure. People
in the corridor when the shootout's happening, you know, and having to move away. It wasn't just this empty space. And then that's where dude got shot. I said it in my reaction. I'm going to say it again here. That scene was dumb and took me out of it.
Shot.
Yeah. Like, so the dude's military of some kind, you know, whatever. And like the minute they're going, he turns his back. I'm glad you got shot. Like, not really. That's awful.
Yes, that is awful, Jeff.
It is, but I'm just like,
jeez.
What did you think was going to happen?
But he took a bullet. Now, it did not impact me or occur to me in the moment that he just sacrificed himself for Eilerson.
I literally thought it was just like, I'm the moron who got hit.
And he just got hit, and Eilerson just happened to be on the other side. But he turned it into this big thing of like, no, man, he took a bullet for me. You know, and it kind of messed him up in the head. Probably in a really good way, to be honest with you.
I think so, too. If there was more to this show, and it was actually like chronological in some way, I think this would have been a turning point for Eilerson's character. You know, would have started some reflection. We would have seen him soften up. Almost his Franklin arc, you know, would have been predicated from this. But that probably won't be the case because some people say this was one of the last episodes you're supposed to watch. So I mean, it's all over the place.
Yeah. So Wells gets his thing. However many splits later that becomes Wells. How is it he turns into the spokesman for the group?
I think you can refer to the Screen Actors Guild guide to find out how that happened. But for real, why wasn't it Janie?
Right. So he you know, not propositions, that's not the right word. He proposes. Well, he says to Gideon, he's like, hey, your only way out of this, like, we've got the upper hand. We're going to win. We're here. You can't do anything about it. The only way out of this is to make us somebody else's problem.
Yeah. Like, my note literally says, and this is a little bit more adult, but I'm like, the freaking balls on these guys. Like, we're going to get there one way or another. You can live or not. That's on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Make us someone else. And Gideon says no. He's like, no, I'm not going to make you somebody else's problem. If we're going to die, then we're all going to die here. Also, by the way, who says you're actually going to leave us alone?
Yeah. Where's the guarantee?
Yeah. I don't know that you're going to do that. Here's the thing I had a problem with, though, out of all of that. This ship, the Excalibur and her crew, are the one hope for humanity to solve this cure. And he's willing to like basically go down with the ship and everybody on it and issue the self-destruct over this whole issue.
That's a good point. Because like I was thinking, like he's just, I mean, how hardcore he is, you know, it's just like, he's like, no, hey, if you hurt us, you hurt you, bring it on. But God, when he's down in the little EV suit and they're like, what are you going to do, bro? There's one of you. And he's like, yeah, I'll just shoot you in the kneecap. Like, wow.
And we'll fix you later. I'll shoot you in the kneecap and we'll fix you later. I don't care.
But to your point, like, you're going to possibly kill your crew and blow up your ship. The thing that I got jumping way to the end.
Yeah.
But to wrap it back to here also, he's in Greenberg Greenberg. And as he's getting, like, he realizes what's going on. He's like, I know what you're looking for. I know where to find it.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that was like, and this is assuming some altruism on the part of these aliens, but it's saying, look, you got a choice here. You can drop us off on an inhabited planet and we'll let you go, or we're going to take you over and go to an inhabited planet. He could have said, how's this? How about you drop us off at an inhabited planet? We tell you where to find this cure and let you go. That would have introduced such a moral dilemma for Gideon. Like, do I go kill this planet, this inhabited colony or whatever, to save Earth?
So here's the thing, and this is my thought about that, because I definitely, there's my note right there about it. We can assume that this entity is not the only one of his kind out there in the universe.
True. I agree.
Okay. So if he knows what they're looking for, he knows where this cure is, because that's exactly what I understood it to be as well, was he knows where the cure is. One, he could just know that that's what they're trying to do, and this is just something he's trying to say to stay alive, and it doesn't work. Or is this something that was planned to come back later? Like, was this in JMS's long-term plan? And this is one of those, we're introducing it. We're world building a little bit here. Kind of, this is the soul hunter of the series, right? Like we're doing this, but we're going to come back to this much later. And, you know, maybe that's how we find out. And I don't know. I don't know if that was going to be the plan or not.
Yeah.
But that's in my head. That's where I'm okay with this. There's other beings out there that also know, and this one's just got to die because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And that guy, we're going to find him later, and he's going to let us know.
It does add a really neat wrinkle of just, there are people that know what's up, which is interesting because of the books. I understand that it was a Drakh manufactured plague for the Minbari.
Mm-hmm.
How do was it manufactured a long time ago and that's how other people know about it, or what? I don't know. It doesn't.
Maybe at least 1,000 years ago.
Maybe. Could be.
Could be from way back then.
Quite possibly.
So, when Gideon comes in and he's dressed in the suit,
mm-hmm.
You know, my first thought was,
what?
He's the one. He's the one.
Right. We're going to play this whole thing all over again.
Right.
That was a great scene. I loved him. Every episode, I loved Gideon a little bit more.
Sure. So he comes up with a plan, right? And the people back, you know, the doctor and Matheson and Eilerson are like trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden Eilerson thinks he's figured it out, and he won't tell Matheson. Okay, now Jeff, let me ask you: captain of the ship is below deck dealing with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in command?
Yeah, Matheson.
Okay, Matheson's like, "Tell me what's up," and he goes, and Eilerson's response is, "Trust me," and then he runs off. Just do what I tell you to do and trust me. You were in the military, Jeff.
Yeah.
Does that fly?
No, especially when dude isn't
no
even
way.
Military. Yeah, he's not even like
There's
part of
no
the
way.
And, you know, maybe though Matheson was telepathing him and knew what the plan was.
Fair.
maybe. But that whole scene was so disappointing. He's down there in his suit. They're hearing everything that's going on. And he says, the air is human. And for like 6 hours, they're like, what could he mean by that? Come on.
I know what you meant by that as soon as he said it.
And it took
Blow the
Isla
freaking
saying.
airlock. He's in a suit.
But like for reals, because it comes back where he's leaning back being like, come on, guys. And this, hey, suit, how much time do I have? It literally took them over half an hour. And I'm just like, literally when that would be done, I'd be like, hey, guys, we need to sit down and have a chat. You're fired.
I need you to read my mind a little more often, telepath.
Yeah. Come on.
Man. Jeez. I did like this when they finally figured it out and they depressurized the deck. Everyone's getting blown around.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's getting blown around except for Gideon, who's literally just standing there.
Just standing
like,
there.
I don't know if he just had like mag boots on or something, but like he wasn't even Michael Jacksoning it. Like he was just standing there like there was nothing wrong.
He's like, I'm Captain freaking Gideon.
Right?
What you got?
I got to tell you, I'm watching the scene though, and the science in me starts kind of going off, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. Like, I'm pretty sure. You depressurize a deck like that in space.
Mm-hmm.
What we see is people gasping for air.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm.
No. Your body is trying to explode. Yeah. You have pressure inside of your body and you're trying to explode. And they're all like, how long can the human body live without oxygen? Dude, that's not the thing we're worried about here.
Yeah.
There is a reason why we have a pressure suit.
Yeah.
So you don't go, I'm not saying you're actually going to explode. I don't think people explode if they get spaced, but that's like like everything goes, you got like 30 seconds in the vacuum of space. And that's what they were actually exposed to, not 3 or 4 minutes.
Right. Of just no oxygen.
Yeah.
And
right.
Wells being able to be like, I'm going to stumble around and go like do these things. Yeah.
And this is one of those things where I was just thinking, I was like, for all the science accurate stuff that they went through with Babylon 5 to come to this one, I'm like, I suppose I could be wrong on something. Maybe there's something that I'm missing, but I'm 98% sure. And I'm in this world a little bit. Like, I don't think so. Like,
but maybe it's a thing where like, they just had one little door open to vent it and they were still actively pressurizing the space at the same time. So there was like this, I don't know, we could headcanon the thing together if we wanted to in some way, maybe.
No, I think it was just their science advisor was at lunch.
Yeah.
When this scene was being filmed is my thought. So the climax of the whole thing, where Wells is stumbling around and he finds, he sees Gideon there and he takes the thing and he knocks him over and he undoes the thing and he grabs his arm and he sucks everybody into the thing. And then all of a sudden, like Gideon's face pops up and, he goes down and all of a sudden he's like, wait, I can't move my body. And da-da-da-da-da. I had to rewind that scene and rewatch it from the beginning. Like once I knew what happened, I had to go back and see how they played it because they got me on that scene.
It didn't make sense. At one point, I'm like, is he taking the suit off of Gideon? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah. I think that's exactly what they wanted you to believe in the moment. And this is where I'm going to knock Steven first in his directing choice here. Because you see this happening and then all of a sudden you just see like Gideon's head, like come over like his shoulder, which you're like, wait, where did if we saw him come from around the corner, and would have been like, oh, this is actually a second suit. This is a second person. Like it took me a minute to figure that out. And I had to go back and rewatch that. But that being said, I loved this solution.
Oh my God.
Gideon had his body and we find out later, like, would he have approved of us using his body like that? They put his body in a spacesuit, sent it down, and he propped it up to kind of look like him. And he hid behind the bulkhead until Wells came by and knocked over a dead guy. And then he just comes from around the corner and like locks the suit back and spaces the dude.
Yeah. That was hard. core. It was amazing. And I just remember watching it just being like as I saw it unfold, I'm like, oh my God, this is intense. And I asked myself the question, I went through the thought exercise of, would he have consented to this?
What do you think?
Absolutely.
I would have too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a second doubt.
Notwithstanding the fact that the visual of when he got shot, we're just going to assume the narrative is correct that he chose to sacrifice himself for Eilerson.
Yeah.
If he made that choice, 100% he's making the choice to do this.
Even if he didn't, 100% he's still making that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Unless he just doesn't belong in Earth Force. Like,
but it was and then like, oh my God, I lost my mind. Okay, we spaced him, like, oh, I can't believe this. And then freaking cannon. Yeah, those guys ain't coming back. Game over.
Unless they can survive in the vacuum of space.
Well, they can't. They got blasted. Like, well, that's like each little piece of Greenberg had a little piece of the alien or something. There wasn't.
And the alien can clearly survive in a dead body, which goes against what they told us earlier. Like, if you die, then he dies.
Oh, no, the body was still alive.
Oh, that's right. They said the brain was dead, but yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Which brings in a whole other, question that I don't want to interrogate here, but of just like, is that living? What would that person choose? All those things. But in this case, hey, it was super convenient. And this guy laying around, like, problem solved.
So we get back. It's Mr. Wells. There's the decorators. They get them the new uniforms. And you mentioned earlier a real touching scene at the end. And Eilerson's trying to figure this whole thing out, right? Like, why would he do this? Why would he do this? He's having this, like, crisis of conscience, right? And then we see Gideon at his desk, which, first of all, did you see the chessboard he has on his desk?
I actually didn't notice that.
That was a cool looking chessboard. You need to go back and look for it. All right. Cool looking chessboard. But you mentioned how touching the scene was of Gideon going through all that. And I agree with one exception.
Okay.
The music was whack.
Agreed.
And it really, in that moment, more so than any other part of this particular episode. And it feels like we're getting that each week, Jeff. Like, there's one spot of the episode where the music is so counterintuitive to what's going on in the scene that it stands out like a sore thumb. And in this one, the music was like ominous, not somber.
Yeah.
Like
something bad was about to happen.
It did. It was like, oh, just wait for it. Then we go out. And it's like, no. He's writing letters home telling parents that their kids are dead. Like, jeez.
If this was many other sci-fi series, you'd have the lone trumpet of sadness, in the background of, or whatever. But no, in this one, and there was one other scene in this one was it during the shootout? But there was another scene where they did the whole thing where they silenced the dialogue again and just had the music play. And it's like, do not bring any attention to that music. Like, just stop. Yeah, that was rough.
So, Jeff, I think we are at that spot where it is time to turn this and pick out those messages, those sci-fi messages. On our Stargate show, we use this litmus test of a hope for a better future, a mirror to society, or showing us how we can be better human beings to one another. That certainly is not an exhaustive list, but that's just kind of a litmus test we apply to it. Jeff, what messages did you pull out as you overanalyzed this really cheesy, campy episode of Crusade?
It actually had a ton of messages in it. It was just overflowing. We talked about the one, what's more important, the thing or looking good doing the thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm still going to land on yes is the answer to that one. But there's a couple others, three specifically I want to pull out. One is that question of duty and sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like, what to you is worth more than your life? I think, you and I are fathers, and I think it'd be very easy for us to say our kids.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah. Easy. That's an easy one. Easy to say that, right? I haven't been put to that test. But to do what Greenberg does in this, And give it up for a dude who is admittedly just an annoying, awful person.
Insufferable is my word.
Insufferable. I like that word.
Yeah.
To do that, and then further to be okay to do that for everyone. I think that's a great question to ask. But beyond that, what I thought was fascinating was Eilerson's reaction through this whole thing. He was so uncomfortable that Greenberg chose to sacrifice himself for him. Like he was having an existential crisis, talking to anybody he could about, like, oh my God, this guy like did this for me. Like, I don't understand. But then at the end of the episode, after he got space back blasted into oblivion, he was like, well, okay, he did it for everybody too. So I feel a little bit better about this. And I just thought it was fascinating, that difference between someone sacrificing for the greater and someone sacrificing for you. And so as much as we could ponder that question of what is more important to you than your life, I think another one is, how would you respond if someone thought you were that thing that was more important? How would you carry that? And I don't know. I think I would have a really hard time with that. That's a lot to carry. And we saw that in here, how Eilerson really struggled. Another thing I saw, and we just talked about that, writing letters. This is a thing that people don't talk about a lot. I talk about this quite a bit. I have a couple episodes in Starfleet Leadership Academy about this, but leadership is hard. And leadership is lonely. If you are captaining a starship, you make life and death decisions every single day. Right. And we have a lot of jobs like that. We got law enforcement, military, things like that, where you make a choice and lives will be lost. And that's hard to do. And yes, you can get input from people around you and thoughts, but you're the one making that decision and that call. But it's not just those jobs. You could be the shift lead at McDonald's and something happens. Dude comes in with a gun and is robbing the place. You make decisions where people's lives are on the line, and it's on you alone. But I loved the way that they shot Stephen Furst again, shined in this scene. The lighting was a little dark. He was all alone. The shot was kind of tight on him as he was dictating the letter. Like, I felt so lonely in that moment for him, of like, alone, he has to be the one to reach out. And so I think for me, that message is acknowledging that, but also acknowledging that he did it. It would have been so easy for him to just give the stock letter, this person was a hero and highly decorated. And he actually started with that, where it's just kind of, this time and this date and these things. And then he's just like, and he was a hero. And, if you need anything, like, reach out. Like, and it was just like watching him melt in that moment was like, that's leadership. Yeah. So good. But I think my favorite message in this was that not everyone is what they appear to be.
Oh, come on now.
All right, a little Jakar for you, but I actually have the dude's name, the fashionista's name. I have it down here in my notes. His name was Kevin.
Of course it was.
Exactly.
Of course he was Kevin.
But let's take Kevin, who my note on him is, this is such late 90s gay coding. Like, through today's lens, it's like, oh my gosh, this is rough. But to take this guy who's played as a joke, you can even take that ugly piece away and just say he's kind of a punchline in the whole thing. Even Gideon playing off of him. If they stay here much longer, I'm going to have to kill them. Ha ha ha. It's whatever. But in that moment where he's like, dude, I have this skill. I have this very specific set of skills, and this skill is noticing lines and connections and things. And what I'm seeing is this chain of life. I love that this was an illustration of diversity, the magic and the power of diversity. And beyond those things, you just notice, acknowledging the depth of humanity, of experience that everybody brings to the table, and that any input or any eyes on a thing could bring value. My first reaction was, what in God's name is this designer doing on the bridge while Matheson is reviewing mission tape? Like, what is going on? And then it's like, oh, because he's amazing and he's brilliant and he brings more to the table than designing stupid, ugly uniforms that are contrary to the whole mission of the Excalibur.
Tell us how you really feel, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't have feelings there at all or anything. But no, I think this episode had tremendous messaging throughout it. Did you catch anything that I didn't talk about?
Well, a lot of what you caught as well. Let's start with the Eilerson bit. You know, Eilerson had this disconnect between what his brain knew and what these things have that he's never experienced before. These they're called emotions,
right? Like
an inner conscience. Like it was new to him, and there was this hard disconnect, and for Greenberg, and he couldn't make sense of it. Why would he do that for him? It just didn't make sense. And you know what? He's right.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. Why would anyone go and put their lives on the line and jump in front of a bullet for another human being that's not a family member, not a friend, a complete stranger?
Mm-hmm.
The most you have in common is you happen to be born within the same borders.
Right.
You know? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. And that, Jeff, especially in a country where it's a volunteer military, that's why the folks who serve, Jeff, I'm including you in this because you served, are a special breed of people that deserve our respect and our honor. It's not something I did. And if I could go back and do it again, maybe I would, maybe I don't know. But I just found talking about like a mirror to society, like, yeah, that is the disconnect and it doesn't make sense. And that's why we honor them. That's why before every sporting event, we say, hey, if you're a veteran, if you served currently or in the past, please stand up, you know, and we honor our military veterans here. But I really want to dive down. The one that really stood out to me and the one that I love the most is the one you were really just talking about. With Kevin.
Yeah,
with Kevin. You're right. He was a stereotype. He was a gay decorator.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was. They completely wrote him off. He's just that guy. You know, he's an intruder.
Yeah, Gideon was literally going to kill him. Like he just didn't want him there.
Yeah. However, as a direct result of his skills and the special way that he sees the world, we found the answer to the problem.
He saved the day.
He did. He was completely discounted by the crew, written off as an annoyance, maybe even a weirdo. And that's certainly how he was being played. Yet without him, they likely would not have figured it out. You know, Jeff, and I'm reminded of this great illustration of the body. You know, the body needs all the parts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You need your hand, you need your arm, you need your shoulder, you need your back. Okay, well, you need your butt, you need your toe, you need your knee. Like, there's different parts to the body, and it all makes up this great society of who we are. Now, I just, as far as how he was portrayed, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I said it before, I'll say it again, I'll reiterate, it's not okay to go in and portray that for laughs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. It was a joke back in the 90s. In many ways, it's still a joke today, and that's not okay. We shouldn't be portraying that as such. I will also say, in my experience, I am speaking solely of me, all right? every time I have met a man, particularly a cisgendered man, okay, who is far more effeminate than the normal, ordinary, everyday, average man, right? Which this guy was. That person has always turned out to be part of the LGBTQ community.
Okay.
With the exception of one time. Every other circumstance in my life, because I've known people who act like him. It shouldn't be played for laughs. Some of those people are my friends.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them are acquaintances, I'm sad to say. I should take the time to get to know them better. But my point being, talking about the mirror to society, like how he portrayed these folks, portraying it for laughs, not okay. It's still kind of accurate. It rang true for a reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and in saying that, he was discounted, and he certainly had a unique way of seeing things. A way that Matheson didn't see it. He didn't see the lines and how things connected and went through. Matheson looks at him and he says this, and this blew my mind even more when I thought about it. Matheson's like, "Why are you here?" And Kevin says, "Well, in a crisis, I can't stay in my quarters. I have to help. I have to be part of it." And you know what? That speaks more to his character as a human being than the way he talks or the way he holds his hands in his wrist or his personal preferences or the things that he likes to center his life around. In fact, he's like, no, something's going on. I can't sit by and just let this happen. I've got to be a part of it, and I've got to lend whatever I can bring. And you know what? He didn't bring anything that wasn't him to the table.
100%. Yeah.
You know, and that's what solved the freaking problem. And so if I say there's a message here, the body needs all its parts. I'll go back to that phrase. And we should celebrate that, and we should not write those parts off.
Right.
When people come out just because they seem a little different than us.
Yeah.
You know? They're amazing, amazing folks. People are valuable because they're people, Jeff.
Period. That's it.
Period. You know? So those are the ones I got.
I like that. I want to take what you said and just twist it a tiny bit. And that is, the body needs all of the parts that it has, right? Because not everybody has toes or thumbs or things, and that's fine. They don't need them. They don't have them. But the parts that the body has, it needs. And what we need now, Brent, is for you to do the fun part of this whole part of the show. We're creating the 100% accurate, immutable, objectively correct ranking of Crusade, the entire series of it, here in one fell swoop. Our current top 5 has 2 episodes in it. In number 1 is The Long Road, and in number 2 is Warzone. Brent, you get to place appearances and other deceits. Where's it going to go?
Yeah, this is going to be our new number 3. It's going to go at the bottom of the list, and rightly so. But I'm going to emphasize, that does not mean that I did not like this episode. I liked this episode. I would watch this episode every time it comes on TV. I saw it twice. I loved it both times. Cackled my way through it. It's so good. It's so fun. It's just Warzone and Long Road are better episodes. But I enjoyed this episode. Even if you were bored. Sorry, Jeff.
Not through the whole thing. Not through the whole thing. But I'm not going to have a chance to potentially be bored by it again for a little while unless it happens to just show up in my streaming feed or whatever, because, Brent, that's it for appearances and other deceits. Next week, we're watching an episode called The Memory of War for the first time. We haven't seen these episodes. We don't know anything about them other than the order we're watching them in is probably upsetting to someone out there, and sorry, that's a you thing, not an us thing. So, Brent, why don't we dive into our game where we like to guess what's going to happen based on the title alone? What do you think The Memory of War is going to be about?
Well, if we're talking about memory of war, this is somebody dealing with PTSD, possibly.
Okay.
Or we're back to the Drock, and there's like some callback, or there it is. There's fallout from the Vorlon Shadow War, so this is 5 years after Babylon 5 gets done, and that was a year before that. So this is like 6 or 7 years ago. It's something to do with the Drock, the memory of the war. It's going to be a callback to that. Possibly somebody dealing with some PTSD coming out of that, or Drock doing something coming out of that. That's my thought. How about you?
I think it's going to be a Matheson episode, and it's going to be his memory of the Telepath War.
Oh,
Brent, how many times have I predicted the next episode is going to have something with the Telepath War? Apparently, I'm not going to stop.
See, but you're saying that the Telepath War has already happened.
Yes. That's how A Call to Arms started, was, hey, this thing happened, the telepath crisis. And then in Warzone, Warzone, when he set up for Mass, like, he's a telepath. There's new rules for telepaths after that whole unpleasantness that we had.
Yes. Was that the war, though?
I think they're trying to minimize it now. They're trying to retcon, like, well, maybe it wasn't such a big deal.
You know what it was? Probably JMS got so sick and tired of hearing people ask about the telepath war that he's like, no, I'm going to tank the whole thing.
I think it was more JMS was like, I'm really sorry about Byron. We're just going to minimize this whole thing. And we're going to find out, Brent, right here next week. Thank you all for joining us. If you're watching us, if you're listening to us, thank you. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Leave us a rating and a review. We might even read it right here on the show if you do so. And the best thing you can do, the thing that will mean the absolute world to us, is if you share this show with someone who either hasn't seen Crusade before or hasn't seen it in a really, really long time, or even someone who watches it all the time and loves it, just wants to relive that for the first time experience. So until next time, we're going to go ahead. Yeah, Brent, what's up?
You know what's the worst feeling in the world?
Oh, I totally know the worst feeling in the world. When you pull like that little piece of skin like next to your nail and then it catches every time you put it in your pocket.
Oh, it hurts like a son of a gun.
Where are you going? I don't know.
That was the dumbest line in the thing. I'm like, why? Are you trying to give this guy personality? Please stop. Please.
Right.
And I don't know if it's the character or the actor yet at this point, but I just, I can't Eilerson.
Yeah, me either. I said, if he turns out right about this, he's just going to be insufferable for days.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, he's just insufferable. Like,
period. That's just how he is.
Even through his grief, it's still like, dude, why are you making this about you? Like, he's the one on the gurney in there. Like, what's your deal here, man?
Hey, look at that guy right there. But I'm having this, I don't know if I deserve this thing.
Yeah.
Talk to me, doctor. Right. Hey, you know what's going to help me a lot, doctor? Is if you come over here and don't actually act and just read a cue card somewhere of what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Dang.
She was offensively bad in this episode.
You're not wrong. Yeah. You're not wrong. I didn't say it in the show, but she called him Matt. She calls Gideon Matt.
I got that too.
I was like,
Galen.
dude.
Galen can do that. Yeah, he can call him whatever he wants.
Right.
Dr. Chambers, it is Captain Gideon or Sir.
I mean, I don't know, because like Beverly Crusher calls Picard Jean-Luc.
Yeah, but they have a kid.
But this was before they had the kid.
Well, there's a sequence of events that
were they already sleeping together? I don't know, but
it's just convenient that her husband died on a mission.
There was
he
some
sent him
history.
On.
There was some history there between the two of them prior to the show, for sure.
Also, I don't think Dr. Chambers is military. I don't think she's Earth Force.
Oh, fair enough. So there's a question, and I don't know this. If you have non-military personnel, like in your outfit, will they call commanding officers by like first name, familial names?
I don't think so. At least not in front of other people.
Do you guys like how on a first name basis are you with people? Like, so you're on a ship, you're on a boat, right? At what point does it stop being Jim and does it turn into Commander so-and-so or whatever?
I can only speak to the submarine fleet, which is a very unique culture. And we were on a first name basis almost all the time. Now, when we were doing our TRE, doing
all the way
war
up to the
games,
captain of the boat.
all the way up to the captain. His name was Oliver.
Okay.
I don't even remember his last name.
And you just called him Oliver?
Uh-huh. I remember
Captain,
our XO.
Captain O? Captain,
Right, yeah. There's probably a time we called him by that, but also he was very rarely if we were in war games or something like that, he may have been on the observation deck or whatever, but he wasn't. Very rarely was he calling the shots. It was usually somebody else. Our XO, I forget his name, but he was pretty formal. He was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
But like my division officer, my divo, his name was Greg. And I remember, I think I might have shared this story before, but I was stationed in San Diego, and this is in the mid 90s. It's a very different military than exists today. And so my experience is not necessarily what people in more recent times is or has been, but we had to go up to the main naval base, which is on 32nd Street, and to pick up some gear or something like that. And we're walking down a ways. A couple minutes in, he nudges me. He's like, "Akin, you don't start saluting people around here, I'm going to get my ass kicked." I'm like, "Oh, that's right. We're on a surface base again. I gotta act like a military guy." Submarine's just a very different. But when we were in events and doing things, it was very sir, I sir, this sir, because there is a protocol on the bridge when you're or on the deck when helmsman, make your setting 316 degrees. 316 degrees, aye, sir. Heading now 316 degrees. 316 degrees, aye. It's a lot of very call and response and a lot of formality in that.
Did you call each other by like ranks? Commander, captain, skipper.
No. Well, here's the thing too that is really like things like Star Trek and whatever is really blown out of proportion. There are not a lot of officers. It's a bunch of enlisted dudes.
Oh, dude, seriously, anyone who graduates the academy is automatically an officer.
Yeah.
On the ship, like everybody on the ship's an officer except for Miles O'Brien.
Yeah, he's the one.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
But yeah, you
Harry
go out into the
Kim
real world,
is the lowest ranked person on the entire ship of Voyager, and he's an ensign.
Yeah,
which is an officer, right?
Yeah.
Wesley
the
Crusher,
academy,
acting ensign.
Not a provisional whatever. And even with the Maquis and Voyager, you'll be a provisional commander, or you'll be a provisional lieutenant. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Now again, on the surface, it might be a little bit different, but generally officers are like the managers, so there might be 5 to 10 enlisted people to every one officer. On the boat, I think we might have had 8 officers with 124 people on the whole thing.
Right.
It's not a lot. And the thing in the Navy, almost everyone is a petty officer. So you don't necessarily go by rank because it's petty officer and it's, there's chiefs and first, second, third degrees. It doesn't. So, and also on a boat, submarine rank doesn't really matter. It's what role you're filling on the boat at that time. So again, much of the military is very different.
Interesting. All right. Well, with that, Jeff, let's get out of here. Thank you guys, Club 65. Had no idea that this is where this particular conversation was going to go, but hey,
you never know.
That's what it is. Thanks for sticking around to the end, guys. You guys are amazing. Thanks for not jumping out like right as we start our outro stuff. That's what makes you guys special. That's why you guys are here. Drop 65 down in the comments below. Let's know that you were here. We'll see you guys next week. Remember, first rule of Club 65, we don't talk about it outside of Club 65. Talk to you guys then.
Ever.